Hey, free timers, planning is one thing, but taking action is where it gets real. In this episode, we're talking about how to move from thinking to doing. We'll look at why waiting until you're ready is actually the smart choice, how to focus on the few actions that actually matter, who to turn to for support, and most importantly, what to do when things don't go as expected. This is where the theory meets real life, or as my grandpa used to say, where the rubber meets the road. Let's get on with the show. Welcome back to the Time Freedom Podcast, where you can learn how to rethink your work and your money to create a life you love right now. Join us for insights to help you find meaningful freedom so you can choose how and when and with whom you work for as long as you want. Here are your hosts, me, Brian Herriot, and Kirby Denison.
Hello, and welcome back to episode 19 of the Time Freedom Podcast. I can hardly believe that we are down to the last two episodes of our first season. We kind of set up one season and said we'd do 20 episodes, and we would just see where it went from there. And I'm excited. We're already planning season 2 to start recording that. And it's just been so fun. It's actually become one of my very favorite things to do in the last, I don't know, how long have we been doing it?
Me
2
too.
months?
And I think next week's final episode, we'll give a preview into some of what season 2 is going to look like. So that'll be fun to share.
Today's episode first is on taking action. If you remember last week, we talked about the time freedom calculator and how to use that, what numbers to look for. Brian shared a quick story. And now that we have a plan, we get to take action. And that's probably the most exciting thing. I've probably said that every episode, actually, that I'm really excited. But I am. I love this. And taking action is the only way to put that in place. So before we jump in.
Well, I wanted to mention that taking action, my grandpa used to always say, this is where the rubber meets the road. And do you know that phrase? Is that pretty common? Okay, I didn't know if it's like a Midwestern thing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I feel like it's a Midwestern thing because my grandparents also said the same. And they're from Iowa.
I just looked it up to see where that came from. And it's from, I think I know probably why now it's like my grandfather's thing. In the 1950s, Firestone Tires had a commercial or something, and that was their thing. It was Firestone Tires, the name that's known where the rubber meets the road. That was their little tagline.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that still their tagline?
I don't know.
Is
I don't
Firestone
think so.
still a thing? I don't know.
Oh, remember they had that big, they were like sued or something because what was wrong with the tires?
Recently, right? Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Not really recently.
Obviously, tires are not my expertise, and I don't take care of that. That's Travis's job. So, before we get started here, Brian, why don't you catch us up a little bit? Oh, I guess I could share my story first.
Yeah. Well, we were talking
whichever.
before we started, and Kirby had kind of a funny story. I'm like, wait, save that. Make sure you tell it on the podcast.
Yeah, so I flew into California today. We record these, a couple at a time. And it's always interesting to see people on planes. And I like to people watch in general. And there's a group of us. There's 5 from St. Louis that flew in. We all got on the same flight in Denver. We met up there and flew in. There's 5 of us in this house that we're staying at. And I asked this one lady if I could sneak in the row behind half of our group. And so I sat down. She was not impressed that I asked to squeeze by her. And so then our friend comes down the aisle and she was like, can I sneak in right there? And she had already had her phones plugged in the back of the seat. She pulls them out and she was like really cranky. And I was like, oh God, this is going to be a flight. And she ended up turning out to be really fun, but I had a free drink ticket. So I got a high noon at 9 a.m. Because why not? And then the whole dynamic of our row changed when the lady next to us got 2 shooters and some soda water.
Well, I don't know about that person's decision, but I think that if you have a free drink ticket, you have to use it. It doesn't matter what time of day it is.
Well, that was my thought too. And going into the week before trainers, today's the only day I can have a drink. And then they didn't even scan to say that I claimed it or anything.
So you have it for the flight home.
I got another one.
Excellent. My high noon story. Those have been popular for 5 or 6 years or something like that.
Yeah, I would say so.
I sometimes don't pay attention to pop culture. What's not pop culture? I don't pay attention to trends. And I was at a family, like a reunion, and it was great. But the problem was I was also working, talk about flexible work. I was like trying to manage a go live for a system project that I was project managing this, some years ago. And I just grabbed a quick bubbly water before I jumped on my call. And yeah,
I can already see where this is going.
oh, well, at first I was just like, God, I'm so sleepy. Why am I having such a hard time? Because it was the morning and I'm trying to lead this. And then I finished the whole thing and then I'm like, oh my God. And then I looked at the can and I saw what I had drunk. I don't think anybody knew.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Was the cameras on or off?
No, cameras were off. This was, pre-pandemic where we, it was just more conference call. But like, I'm sure I told somebody, it's my nature to be like, you'll never guess what I just did. But yeah, anyway,
I love it.
It's all good.
Yes.
It's all good.
And I should clarify, I didn't have another drink on the flight. I saved the drink ticket for my next flight.
Okay, good. That is good to clarify. Because I'm like, why are you laughing so much in this episode?
It's full force.
Okay, so I suppose we should talk about taking action, huh? Oh, we should introduce each other. So Kirby is the airplane flying owner, airplane ride, whatever. Kirby is the owner and founder of Kirby & Co., wonderful company that provides coaching services and fractional COO services and can help you with your virtual assistant needs.
Yes. And I'm here with Brian, our time freedom expert, speaker, and author, and amazing financial advisor who's brought humanity to the financial advising world, because
that's so nice. Thank you.
Not usually there. So, yeah.
All right. So we're going to talk about taking action, and in the least non-boring way possible. I have there's a lot of strategies out there on how to take a step forward. You got to take the first step even before you're ready, so that it can kind of trick you into taking further action. There's just a lot of different strategies and tactics, but there's 3 things that I really believe are important when it comes to taking action on things that formulate this 3-part framework that I have. And let me tell you what they are to start with, and then I want to spend some time talking about them. And some of them are, like the first one, for example, is a little maybe surprising. The first thing to remember in my framework for taking action is to wait until you're ready. Which sounds kind of backwards, but I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Like, I feel like there's a time for something, and if you're not ready to do it, you're not going to do it. That's the theory behind it. But I'll tell you couple stories about that. The second one is to really, 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 really simplify what it is that you're trying to do. So this, comes back to the arguments that people can't really focus on more than 1, maybe 2, possibly 3 things at a time. But if you're supposed to be taking action on 10 things, no way. So this one isn't as counterintuitive, I think, as the first one. And then the second one is pretty standard. Don't go it alone. All right, because it's just like the gym membership thing. If you're meeting somebody there to work out, you'll go. But if it's just you, you're not going to go. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit more about these 3 strategies and how they relate to implementing your time freedom plan that we've established up until this point. I don't know if any of those 3 strike a chord with you, Kirby, based on your reading of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some stories, probably in each of them. So
wonderful. Oh, that'll be fun. So let's kick us off with just wait until you're ready. And this is another Theo story that taught me this lesson, because I don't know if I would have known this before this experience happened, because again, I come from a family of put your head down and do it. I don't care if you don't want to do it, just do it. And I've changed my tune on that a bit. So we wanted to get Theo involved in sports because, we're a family that has 1 kid. And so we have a lot of time to think about these things. And, you're supposed to get your kid active in sports and do all those sorts of things. And so we kind of convinced him, even though he didn't really want to do this little program called Lil Kickers, not little, LIL apostrophe. Lil Kickers was the local soccer program for 4-year-olds, right? And so you get the picture. We drive over to this. It's actually I live on Alameda Island, which is like a former base, military base. And so there's these big hangars that have all been converted. And one of them's converted into this facility that's got all these fields and whatnot. So it's, these tiny little kids running around. It's super cute. And we're so excited. But on the way there, Theo kind of tells us from his car seat in the bag, he said, I'm not doing it. And we're like, oh, you'll try. You're going to get out there and have so much fun. And sure enough, we get there and they've got, 12 tiny little kids and they're all sitting in a little circle. And then the 13th one is Theo, and he's like way back against the fence with his arms crossed. And this is a point where he was having trouble with his vision or whatever. And so he's got these little glasses on and he's sitting with his arms crossed. And I'm like, oh, the coach, whatever you want to call him, the parent leader was like, should we go get him? I'm like, yeah, go get him. And so the coach would go over about 3 or 4 different times. And every time he's like, no way. So I got to give it to him. He stubbornly resisted that for an entire 45 minutes of the class. And that was actually a huge mistake on my part because he wanted nothing to do with soccer for the next 4 years. Like nothing, zero, nada. And then finally, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but he decided that he thought it would be okay to go to some soccer skill trainings where they don't play, very low pressure. And he did that for 2 years. And then he decided that maybe he wanted to do rec soccer, in which he did for another 2 years. And then he's like, maybe I want to do competitive soccer. And he made the B team. They call it in our city, it's the white team, but it's the second level team. And then the next year he made the A team, the red team. And so he did it. And he did it on his timeline when he was ready to do it. And when you're ready to do it, you're going to work that much harder at it and you're going to make progress so much faster. And so I hope that having gone through the lessons around time freedom, you're like, oh my God, I need this yesterday. But I understand if it's not the case. Maybe you're earlier in your career and you've got some things to prove. Go for it. Come back to the book, just put it on your shelf and come back to it when you're midlife and you're like, maybe I could do something different. The time is right then and you're going to take action.
Maybe he wasn't so wrong at that point. If you're early, you don't believe anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to learn our own lessons. Actually, the Theo story is so much like Tate. Like, obviously there's an age difference, but he's 2. And so we've been in the potty training stage, what seems like forever. And all of a sudden, actually this week, he decided that he was going to go. And I was like, okay, I'm going to leave for 10 days. So good luck. But we fought him for over 6 months. And now it's his idea. And so I think that that's so true. And I see that a lot in coaching is, we can give them the tools, we can give them all of the information that they need, but until they're ready, and it's almost like back to last episode of building that confidence. Until you have that confidence, they're resistant for that change or that next level or the whatever to take that action. So backwards as it sounds, it totally also makes sense.
You're going to come home and he's going to be perfectly potty trained and you're going to be like, all right, I guess I should go way more often.
Probably. And the most frustrating thing for me was that when we started, he is 100% potty trained at daycare. He comes home and it was a power struggle between us. And I was like, I'm not going to fight it. And I'm going to let him decide when it's right for him. And the girls were so opposite. Both the girls actually potty trained when the next kid was born. And it was like Skylar potty trained in 3 days. Aubrey was 5 days.
Nice.
And full potty trained. Skylar never wet the bed. Never did any of that. And so that Tate's I don't know, just does not care. Well, so I was like, I'm not power struggling anymore. I'm over it.
Yeah, power. Yeah. Well, you'll realize, especially as they go older, you have no power. You do have no power.
That's true.
I mean, you have money. They don't. That's probably the only difference, and you can do things with that money. Yeah, my fear on the whole wait until you're ready is, I guess I was raised under the thinking that, you got to get started now. Because it's going to take some time. And if you don't get started now, you're going to be delayed or you're not going to become as successful at whatever that it is that you want. I remember distinctly when I flipped my thinking on this, which was we had met a friend of a friend and he was a music teacher. And he was saying how, he was a music teacher in, I think it was high school. And he's like, some of my best students are the ones that just picked up the instrument last year. Mm. They just picked it up and they are committed to learning it and they become very good very fast. Versus I started playing piano when I was 6 years old. I was never into it. I wasted so much of my parents' money growing up, and I never got that good at it. And it's just because I didn't have, like, I wasn't ready for it. I just pushed through it and it wasn't great. And so, yeah. And so actually I used that lesson with Theo, and he never wanted to take a drum lesson ever. So we never pushed it on him. We never pushed lessons. He's very musical. Well, now he's in band in 9th grade, and he's an incredible drummer. And that's 100% A in that class. Like the other grades are whatever they are, but he's got a really, the time was right. The time was right.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, going back to like a business standpoint, you do have to still take action, and you can do smaller actions, maybe not necessarily the biggest action to continue to go. I mean, say you want to work with a coach, but it's not worth you spending $2,000 a month if you're not ready to take those actions. Like, start with a coach that's $200 a month. I don't know. I don't even know if coaches make $200 a month, but it seems crazy.
If it's a true side business and they're in their first year, right, where they're expecting to make no money. Yeah. And another part of the framework is I always assume that there's going to be a failure point at some point, because we're busy people. I'm not pro failure, but I'm like, I'm a realist. I'm a realist. And so if you fail at this, like, my advice is just give yourself a break, right? Because we have other friends, Charlie and Angie, and they would describe to us, when they had two kids, they're 1 year apart. And when they were both under the age of 3, they called those the dark years. You're just not doing anything other than raising those 2 kids. And they missed out on a lot of things. They stopped pursuing a lot of things, but it's for the right reason, right? And so like, don't beat yourself up because you can't do some other thing because you've got something else going on, right? Maybe you're in the dark years of some form, right? And so just cut yourself a break, and the time will be right. And when it is, it's going to be that much easier. It's going to be easier.
Yeah. And my business coach always tells me too, there is no failure. There's only feedback. So,
oh, nice.
You're not really ever failing. It might not go right, and it might like be a wreck, but you didn't necessarily fail. You still took action. You still tried, and now you get to pivot. And
that's a difference I've noticed between like the maker personality that's kind of pro and into entrepreneurship, is how they look at a business, starting a business. Everyone else is like, business is risky. But if you're a maker, you're like, no, it's just a series of things that I need to try until I find the right one, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Try it.
That fits for me. I'm the maker anyway. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the second one, and that's simplify what you should tackle. The tie to the time freedom concepts here is the time freedom formula. So I've done many time freedom forecasts for people. The vast majority, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, come back to one particular pillar is the key to that person's success. So of course you want to look across all and optimize all of them. Great. But if you had to pick the one that you're going to, that's the most important to you. If you've always been a great saver and you're 50 and you've got $2 million in your account, well, guess what? That's the one you need to focus on, because that's going to be the difference maker. If you can start businesses and find the latest trends, that's the one, right? Find the one and focus on it. And so in my framework here, again, like I didn't have a chance to write about this in the book. It's just like in a pre-developed state. But the idea is that you really should look at 1, maybe 2, possibly 3 things. And that's because from my experience, if you focus on the one, that's going to get you 80% of the way there. It's like an 80-20 situation. The next one is just another 15% on top of it. So like if you can do 2 things, you're going to get 95% of the way there. The third one is like another 2.5%. It just falls off. So sure, if you can afford to work on 3 things, great, but definitely 2. And most certainly 1. And then, if you have these kind of main drivers that you're focusing on, then really work on just maybe 3 things, up to 3 things in each of them. So again, like if you do all the math, I'm not going to go through it, but like what you want to do is have the main driver and work on 2 things related to that, and then have the other driver and just work on 1 thing. So you're doing 3 things, and it's the biggest bang for your buck. It's the same thing from the no budget when you kind of go, oh man, I have had so many changes I could make. Well, focus on the ones that are the highest impact, and it's going to be easier, simpler, and it's going to get you most of the way there.
Yeah. And I think that's super important to recognize like how much those heavy hitters really do drive the changes that you're making, because your brain can absolutely only handle so much. Like, they say your brain can only handle 7 things at once. And
Well,
so if you're
that's not me. Like I could
3,
handle one
like,
thing at once. Like you must be
well,
talking about
it
like
depends.
women in general that can do way more things at the same time. I'm totally stereotyping, but in a positive way. I guess you can stereotype in a positive way. I don't know
Yeah,
if
we
you're
just
supposed
learned
to.
that.
Yeah, I just learned that. Yeah.
I too did not know that. Yeah, like your brain can only, it's like in series of 7. So if
Wow.
you know, though, if you can do one thing and it's going to get you 80% of the way, that's a no-brainer. I mean, I guess for me.
Well, so I was just trying to think if I could share an example of kind of my own personal example for how I think how this has worked for me. It's just really narrowing things down. And again, my story is chronicled in bits and pieces throughout the book. So especially if you're listening once the book is out, you'll recognize this. But like one of the biggest changes for me in terms of being able to live this way is the free and flexible work, right? Being in business for myself and structuring the work in such a way that allows me to work freely was a huge difference maker. So that's my number one driver, the maker, right? Now, fortunately, I had mentioned, I think in the previous podcast episode, is that I was taught from a young age to save, right? So I've been a saver. So I have that benefit going for me too. And so if I look at those two, I want to work on 2 things related to my business or businesses and 1 thing related to the money management. And so the 2 things that I'm doing for my businesses is the business that got me to time freedom is my healthcare consulting business, right? Herriot Business Consulting. And I have a handful of employees that work in that business. And my goal there is to make that as passive as possible for me. So get them going, doing their thing, reward them financially, but use the money that comes off that passively to help fund the next thing, which is to become an authority in something. Because I think that's where you can make a big bet and you can make, and you can better control your time and you can make more money to make a bigger impact, right? So those are the 2 things I'm working on there. And then in the money area, I've chronicled all the failures that I've made with money, and I've realized that it's so important to be able to manage the downside risk of money that you have invested in high growth assets. That got real technical, but basically, how do I align the way that I invest with time freedom? So switching to fast follow investing, which we talked about on a previous episode, is again a game changer for me in terms of getting all of the pieces. That's how, rethinking your money part with the rethinking your work part to create this life. And so those are the 2 things I'm working on related to business and the 1 thing that I've worked on related to money.
Yeah. So what would you do if you're having trouble focusing on your number 1?
Again, it's not just push harder at it, but the old Brian would have said. I think that if you're having trouble, you should investigate if you're working on the right thing. And my personal example of this is that I have, over the course of my lifetime, have spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours learning real estate investing. But I never did it. I never pulled the trigger. I probably shouldn't say that. Can you say that? Pulled the trigger? Is that a bad thing to say nowadays?
I don't know.
Anyway,
And
it
now I'm like,
shouldn't be.
it
Maybe in
shouldn't be,
California.
but
I don't know. Yeah. So I never did it. And I've realized that now, and when I was trying to work all that stuff, I didn't have all these ideas crystallized in my mind about time freedom. What I realized, I had like this unrecognized resistance to this real estate where if you've got 5 rental units, that is not a time freedom lifestyle, because you're
no.
working your butt off plunging toilets and collecting rent and all that. So I didn't even realize it
Yes.
at the time, but that's why that's why I ended up not doing it. And I'm glad, right? I'm glad that I didn't do it because, and that's why I think, if you're having trouble, double check and make sure that it really is the right thing that you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I think from your experience, I mean, now you have that knowledge that you can share with others who want to be in real estate investing.
Yeah,
However,
exactly.
me too, I would not want to be. My grandparents have rentals and it's always a nightmare. But it's interesting to have that different perspective because sometimes I think we go down this rabbit hole of that's what we always wanted to do, or so we thought, or, that's the right thing to do because somebody else told us that's what you do. And for me specifically, like, there's multiple things that I've been like, that was the thing that somebody else told me I should be doing. And so again, you spend all this time and energy and learning it, or, and then you don't take action on that task. And then you're like, oh, that definitely was not for me. To look back is like, oh yeah, I would not have been happy doing that by any means. And there's a reason that you don't. And so I second, just get curious of why you're not taking action if you feel like you're struggling there.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the last piece of the framework, which is to not go it alone. And I was thinking about this story crossed my mind the other day. So I just mentioned it to you. When I was a good student. I was that type of person. I was that kid. Kind of sailed through elementary school, first part of middle school. And then all of a sudden I hit 7th grade and I had Mr. Rosenberg for social studies. And it was the first, I think we started midweek. So it's then the next week, the first full week of school, he assigned this huge assignment. And he said, read these 3 chapters and do all the exercises at the end of the book and turn it in on Friday. And I didn't think much of it until that Monday night. I could not sleep because I was so just stressed about it. Like I had that weight on me, but I also wasn't doing anything about it. Like it was this really weird combination until finally at like, I don't know, 10 o'clock, I walked downstairs and my parents are just sitting at the kitchen table, probably having a cocktail because that's the type of family we were. And they made me come clean. And basically, I had what I later learned was my own personal bird by bird moment. It's a book by Anne Lamott. Anyway, I learned this later, but it's the kind of take one step at a time. The example in the book was he had to write a report about a bird, and so it's like you just got to take it bird by bird, And my dad, I'm sure my mom helped too, but in my mind, it's my dad. We kind of laid out this plan on Tuesday night. You're gonna go to bed and get a good night's sleep tonight. Tuesday night, we're gonna do chapter 1. Wednesday night, chapter 2. And it's so obvious. And maybe it's why I'm a project manager, by design now. But when we laid that out, I just had this weight off of me and it was wonderful. So what's the lesson of the story? Well, of course, it's take things one step at a time. But actually, I think of it as, thank goodness I had them, right, to help me understand that, because maybe I would have gotten there eventually, but it was not in me. Like I was not doing the step-by-step process. They had to share it with me. So that's why I'm like, find people that are pursuing the same things, having the same challenges, a little bit ahead of you, a little bit behind you. And you just have these different perspectives and they can really, really support you in whatever it is that you want to take action on.
Yeah. And I second that actually, because for me, I am a very collaborative person, and being able to talk through something else or talk through something and have somebody else's perspective just come in. And sometimes they find something too that you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Or when it does feel so overwhelming for me, as a coach to come in, I can say, okay, here's all of the overarching things and we can lay out a plan.
So in thinking of when we fail at this, right, is kind of the other part of the framework is, when you fail, the question that I would have for you is, did you pick the right support? And this I definitely attack head on in the book, which is when you are looking at living your life in a slightly different way than is traditional, sometimes the people that love you don't get it. And they, for whatever reason, maybe they're worried that you're making a bad decision and they want to protect you, or maybe they're a little envious. Whatever it is, if you're not getting the support that you need, you have to look elsewhere. And so I even offer in the book, if you need a cheerleader, email me. I'll cheerlead for you. I think that's a cool thing. And because I've had so much help through this whole book process, you obviously, but I've got Trevor and Vina and Jennifer and Alina, and I mean, you could probably name other people, and I'm so sorry if I've forgotten you. But so many people have been so invested in helping me with hours of their time to help make this thing a better thing. Man, it's made it so much easier, right, to do. And it's also so fun to share some of these, developments, like the layout of the interior pages when it looks so real. It makes it really fun to share that with all those people that have supported you.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that, as I've started to network too, that's something that finding your circle of people who are your cheerleaders is so important, because they are a different perspective than just family in my mind. They are in the same stage of business. Actually, I just joined H7 Networking, and they call them champions. Like, they encourage you to have 5 champions for you, like, in which either through them or outside of there. And it's doing exactly what you're talking about, is having that encouraging space, but also that collaborative space. And then that's kind of how the whole community grows, right? As we just keep building together, and they are in the same stage of business as you, and they understand your struggles. Whereas if I talk to my husband, he's not going to understand. He works for a corporation. He's just like, yeah, you're doing a great job. I'm like, no, but you don't understand like XYZ.
I hear
So, yeah, just finding your people is super important.
So the 3 parts of the take action framework are wait till you're ready, simplify, and surround yourself with the people that'll help support you. I think those are great things. Now, here's my request to you, the listener, is that I think before you take action, you have to formulate your plan, right? So we talked about getting through the time freedom calculator. I think it takes about 4 weeks to formulate a plan. So, do the look back, look ahead process, all the way through the calculator. I think that's going to take about 4 weeks. And if this is not available yet as when this is being published, but if you get this when the book's published, I am creating a 4-week course that will help you move through and develop that plan. But then we get to this point where what we've been talking about today. You need to keep going, right? So if you spend 4 weeks to develop your plans, start by committing to at least double that. So do 8 weeks to starting to implement, because I think, I don't know the research on how long it takes for something to become a habit, but that's what we're going for, is like, you're getting up a half hour before the family gets up, or you're going to bed a half hour later, and you're just working on this a little bit each day. And if you do that for 8 weeks, you're probably going to be doing it for a lot more, especially if you are in a community that's helping to reinforce everything for you. So that's my ask of you as you start to transition from developing your time freedom plan to taking action on it.
Yes, I love it. Definitely, as we wrap up today, make sure that you like and subscribe on all of our channels, and also find us at Time Freedom Life on Instagram, TikTok. I think those 2. We just started that. So come find us there. Don't forget to join us on the Time Freedom Insiders at timefreedom.life.
And next week is our final episode of season 1, which I'm very excited to talk about, because it's all about what you can do once you have time freedom. Time freedom as a launching pad, we'll call it, is our next episode. So we'll see you then. Bye.
Awesome.